This is a brief overview and demonstration of filtering and exploring data within IBM Open Pages with Watson. As other recordings have shown, a major capability of IBM Open Pages is its ability to personalize the risk or compliance professional's experience. Such examples as the user's personalized homepage or dashboard, task-based views, the native workflow engine. What we'll do in this session is we'll explore the ability for the user to search for and filter specific data that they may be looking for a specific task, or to maybe to export that data for offline viewing. We'll start as the Operational Risk Manager viewing her homepage. She decides she'd like to explore some of the risks that she has visibility to, and so under her risks portlet, she accesses the My Risks Awaiting Assessment, one of the filters available on her homepage. And by selecting it, it'll take her to a list of those 16 risks that meet that criteria. And this is where she can do further exploration, find a specific risk to drill into the task view as we've shown in other recordings, or she can do additional filtering, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, the first thing that she can do if she wants to explore these risks is notice that it recalls at the top of the list what any existing filters that are currently active on this list, and we see My Risks Awaiting Assessment. So what we could do here is say, well, I want to take a look for all of the risks awaiting assessment that I own. I also want to search for risks that might have something to do with, let's say, invalid invoices. So what I've just done is I've done an ad hoc query using the search box. In addition to the risks that meet the criteria for awaiting assessment, there's one risk that has some description, a textual match, if you will, of the invalid invoices, and that's listed with this one risk here. We'll go ahead and cancel this filter out to get back to just the original My Risks Awaiting Assessment. And let's see what other ad hoc filtering capabilities the end user has. So we'll keep this filter active, and then we'll say, okay, instead of just maybe searching against the description field, which I did before, maybe I'd like to search against some of these other fields that are available on this list view. Maybe I'd like to search for inherent risk rating value of high. So I can simply start typing the name of the field, and notice as I start typing that, it gives me the options that I might want to select for that respective field: critical, high, moderate, whatever the other values may be. And I'll select high, and sure enough, it'll go ahead and identify the one risk that meets the criteria of My Risks Awaiting Assessment and inherent risk rating high. Let's go ahead and clear out these two respective filters. So now we're looking at a list of all risks that I have visibility to, because there are no other additional filters being applied. In that case, we have 1,278 risks that I have at least read access to as the Operational Risk Manager in this example. But now let's shift from ad hoc filtering and searching and take a look at some of the save filters that might be available for me. And I'll access the save filters to this icon on the upper left hand corner, and we see really three areas of save filters that we like to maybe explore. The first, as we see, is the business entity. So perhaps before I even do additional filtering of these records, maybe I'm only interested in searching within a certain part of my organizational hierarchy. For example, I might say Global Financial Services, which is the name of my company, finance. So I select finance. And now the list, which is only 33 total now, these are all the risks that are owned by Global Financial Services Finance. So any additional filters that I may run over on the left-hand side will be filtered within specifically this area of the company. So we see public filters and my filters. So first, the public filters. The public filters are filters that have been defined by your administrator, and the administrator will then assign those filters to specific profiles within Open Pages. So that way, folks that are utilizing the very same profile can enjoy the same public filters that have been assigned. The idea here is that these public filters are universally relevant to most, if not all, the folks that are using a specific profile. So I could actually say, well, let me take a look at what the material operational risks are. Now notice it says 63. It says 63 because there are 63 total risks that meet this criteria that I have visibility to. But when I run this filter within the limitations of Global Financial Services Finance, notice that when I select it, there's only 3 risks that are material operational risks within Global Financial Services Finance. So we get the total that I have visibility to here on the left with the actual ones that meet the total criteria listed here for me for access. So we'll go ahead and close out the material operational risks. public filter. And now let's shift our focus to my filters. The idea here is that as I enjoy public filters assigned to my profile from an administrator, I as a specific end user might want to create and save filters that I would like to utilize for my own purposes. These are the filters that only I have visibility to. I create them, I can manage them, and of course I can delete them when I no longer have any benefit from those filters. So let's actually take a look at an existing filter. We'll keep finance listed here as a business entity filter, as I did at the beginning. And let's go ahead and select inherently high risks. So again, 112 inherently high risks, but when I select it within the limitations of Global Financial Services Finance, we see that there are 3 total. And I can take a look at how this filter is defined by going and selecting the edit icon for this filter. And I can see that this filter, which is labeled inherently high risks, was defined as all risks that have inherent risk rating of either or any of critical or high. And I can edit this because I've created it under my filters. I can delete it, but what we'll do to finish this part of the demonstration, let's go ahead and create a brand new filter. So I'm actually going to go ahead and clear out both filters that are currently active on this list view, and now we're going to get back to all of the risks that I have visibility to, in this case 1,278. I decided, I'd like to create a filter for all fraud risks that I own. So I'm going to create a filter. I'm going to give it a name, and I'll give it a name such as my fraud risks. And now I can add the conditions. Whatever conditions I need to add to meet the criteria that I think I'd like to see, I will define here. So first, the field. I know these are going to be my risks, so I'm going to go to the risk owner field. And then I can identify a specific owner, or I can simply say, no, the ones where I am the actual owner. But that's not the only criteria I'd like to add. I'd like to add another criteria, not only risks that I own, but risks that have a risk category. And I could say any of the following values. And notice I have a list of all of the risk category values in this enumerated field. I'll say either internal fraud or external fraud. So now that I've done that, I've got 2 conditions. Are they ORed or are they ANDed? In other words, do I want to see all risks that meet both criteria or either criteria? That allows us to take benefit of advanced logic capability in the solution. So I could turn on advanced logic, and then I can start creating Boolean and OR logic amongst multiple conditions or criteria that I've created for the filter. So in this case, the default is and 1 and 2 need to be true. I'll leave it as such, and I'll go ahead and I'll save this filter. And as you see, I now have my fraud risks, which there are 34, and I can go ahead and I don't need to select it. It was selected by default when I saved the filter. And because I've done this, I'm like, well, maybe I want to log off and I'm going to head to the airport. I'm going to be offline for a few hours. So one of the capabilities that we have in OpenPages is the ability to export the data that you've filtered into a spreadsheet for offline viewing, offline editing, for eventual import back into the system. So I'll go ahead and export this data, and when I click the export icon, I have the ability to not only export the filtered risks in this list, but I actually could identify up to 3 additional levels, such as in addition to these risks, I'd also like to export all of the child controls, and maybe I'd like to also export the control test plans as well. We'll just leave it as the controls. So I'm going to be exporting the risks and their associated controls on this export. So I'll select export, and then what will happen is a spreadsheet of the exported data will be provided for me to be able to then save and to interact with offline. The last area I'd like to demonstrate is the concept of being able to bulk update records in these respective views. So here we are looking at a list of risks. I have 15 total risks in this list, and what I can do is I can either select all of the risks in the list, or perhaps I'd like to select specific risks that I'd like to do a bulk update to. Perhaps I'd like to change the risk owner of these 3 risks, or maybe a bulk approve these 3 risks. Now the ability to bulk update is a permission provided via the registry settings in OpenPages to a specific profile and specific users. So you would be given these permissions through your administrator for the ability to bulk update risks. So I'll select these 3 risks, and I'll go ahead and select the bulk update option, which becomes visible as soon as I start selecting multiple records. And when I do that, I can then then select which fields I'd like to bulk update. Am I going to accept all these risks at once, or maybe I'm going to go on vacation, and so I'm going to go ahead and update the owner of all these 3 selected risks to another user. I could either search for the user or select it from the list, and I'll select John Adams, and then I could go ahead and bulk update these risks, assuming I've been given the permissions to do that. So this was a quick overview of the ability to search for and interact with multiple records in the system. Please keep in mind that what we did not cover in this session was the ability to utilize the cognitive capabilities within OpenPages to provide further assistance in the intelligent mapping and association and searching of relevant records. That is identified in another recording. Thank you very much.